Almost every major seaside resort in the West Country owes its origins and development and prosperity to the coming of the railway more than 100 years ago. Before that, many of these major resorts were little more than just fishing hamlets. Sadly, perhaps many of the branch lines have now disappeared, but there are just a few that survive. And today we're going to take a look at one of them that has survived. It's the most westerly passenger branch line in the whole of the West Country. It's from here at St.Ives over to St.Ives. The line, 4 miles long, has the distinction of being the very last section of broad gauge track to be constructed by the old Great Western Railway in 1877. It was converted to its present standard gauge along with the rest of the network 15 years later. But of course many of the wider bridges built for broad gauge remain unaltered. It's a very busy line. Summer and winter, there are 15 trains a day in each direction. And now the first stop we're coming to is Lelant. The station still remains, but now it's a private dwelling house. Over there's the Hale Power Station. And a little nearer to us, the dreaded Hale Bar, the scourge of shipping for centuries. Now this little area here is called Nut Grove. And down there, at the bottom of those cliffs, is a well. It's dedicated to St. Uni, who is the patron saint of Lelant, and like many other parts of Cornwall, it's a holy well that's become a wishing well, and a very favourite spot for holidaymakers. There can be very few railway branch lines in the whole of Britain to rival this one for breathtaking panoramic scenery. We're now coming into Carbis Bay Station. Once upon a time, it boasted a station master, senior porter, and 2 junior porters. Now it's unmanned, except for the busiest days of the summer. In the days of steam, for reasons of safety, all trains had to stop about here and move very slowly down the extremely steep gradient into St.Ives. Your modern diesels with better stopping power are spared such details. and so into St.Ives itself, where car parks occupy the site of the old loop line, so necessary in the days of steam. Well, you really couldn't have a prettier branch line than that. There have, of course, been loud murmurings about its possible closure over the years, and with British Rail now planning to slim its services, well, its future is still very much in doubt. But for me, well, I hope British Rail find other ways of saving money rather than closing down this particular branch line. If you want to make this journey for real, it'll cost you just 29 pence for a day return and children at half price. I'll be back taking a look at yet another West Country branch line in the very near future. Until then, from me, good night. Hello. Well, for those of you who live around here during the summer, it's probably very hard to believe that a little more than 100 years ago there were very few visitors to Cornwall, just a few hundred each year. But of course the completion of the Cornish railways in the mid-1860s made all the changes. Well, tonight we're going to take a look at a branch line that brought not only holidaymakers to Cornwall, but a great deal of industrial prosperity as well. And that's the branch line from here at Truro down to the port and resort of Falmouth. The line was completed in August 1863. Like the rest of Brunel's system, it was broad gauge, and it remained that way until the great conversion of 30 years later. The line has the distinction of being the only branch line to give an all-the-year-round Sunday service. And now there are 12 trains a day in each direction. The first landmark comes after a few hundred yards, at Penwithers Junction. The main line swings right to Penzance. Falmouth lies literally straight ahead. Like most of the other West Country branch lines that have survived, there's no shortage of panoramic scenery. But now and again, there's a reminder of Cornwall's industry. Over there, far away on the right, is the Wheel Jane tin mine. Two long tunnels are more evidence of the complex engineering work involved in building the branch line. The line originally involved no less than 8 of Brunel's viaducts. Some have been replaced by embankments, some remain. Well, now the first stop we're coming to is Perron Well, once a very busy freight centre. The sidings have long gone, and now they're the site of a builder's yard. The second stop is Penryn. Once again, it was once a very busy freight centre, and now little more than just a halt. There is still a little traffic. Today it's local oysters and petty sporan. And it's after leaving Penryn that you get the first sight of the estuary and the new housing estates that have developed in post-war years. Well, this is the Dell, the station built and opened in 1970 as the new terminus for the town of Falmouth, but its glory was short-lived. In 1975, the old terminus was reopened and the line restored to its original length. And just after leaving the Dell, a glimpse of what Falmouth has developed, the docks and its ship repair industry. Well, a trip like that on a day like today would surely be very hard to beat. If you'd like to make this journey yourself from Truro to Falmouth, a day return will cost you just 64 pence. Well, like many other railway lines in Cornwall, the line from Liskeard to Looe was originally built to handle mineral traffic. It was part of a very much longer line which ran from the copper mines of Carradon right through here to the what was then very busy port of Looe. The section between here, Liskeard and Carradon, was closed down well over 50 years ago. But this part is still going, and despite many attempts and rumours that it's going to be closed down because it wasn't economical, well, it still remains one of the finest branch lines as far as scenery is concerned in the whole of Cornwall. I hope you'll agree. The line began full-scale passenger services in the early 1860s, but for more than 40 years it operated a blissful isolation from any other railway in Britain. It wasn't until May 1901 that it was finally joined up with the Great Western Main Line at Liskeard. It's astonishing the number of people who believe that this line was axed by Dr. Beeching many years ago. But on the contrary, it's still very much alive. And as you can see, on a sunny summer day like this, it's standing room only. The line was scheduled for closure 10 years ago, but there was a reprieve, and now the line carries 9 trains a day in each direction. One obvious economy is that the service has been converted to a pay train. The conductor guard collects the fares. One of the first landmarks is the already near-completed Liscard bypass, still showing all the scars of major road construction. Next, under the main line, carried high above on one of Brunel's less imposing viaducts. On either side, the heavily wooded sides of the East Loo River Valley, and here and there a whitewashed Cornish house nestling on the hillside. Well, the first stop we're coming to is Coombe Junction. And ahead you can see all that's left of the old Caradon line. It still goes on as far as Moorswater and is still extensively used to freight china clay to the docks at Foy. At Coombe, the train does a quick reverse turn for the rest of the journey to Loo. In these diesel days, it merely means the driver getting out of one cab at one end and into the cab at the other. It was in 1935 that the government offered Britain's railway companies some £30 million to improve existing lines. The object was to give industry assistance to help it out of the slump. But one of the schemes envisaged by the then Great Western Railway was a new line, a new direct line linking Loo with Plymouth. The line would leave the main line at Trewulfoot, would then come through Seaton, Millandreath, and then on to Loo in the direct line. Now, that line would in fact have been used by the Great Western's new diesel rail cars and would have cut the journey from Loo to Plymouth by half. Well, the war came along, then nationalisation, and by 1958 the whole scheme was finally dropped. Well, the next stop we're coming to is St. Keen, unmanned now as it's always been. St. Keen's Holy Well and a musical museum are just down the road. Almost the whole length of the journey, the line runs alongside the remains of the old Loo Canal, a means of transport it replaced 130 years ago. And in some cases, you can still see the water. And there, just visible in the silt, the old canal lock gates. And there the Loo estuary with a really superb collection of wildfowl and water birds. And just after 29 minutes, journey's end, Loo. Well, I did promise you a pretty ride. Now, if you'd like to make this journey for real, well, at the moment, and I stress at the moment, it will cost you 45 pence day return and half price for children. And if you'd like to know a little bit more about the line itself, can I recommend this little book? It's called The Railways of Loo and Carridon by Messrs. Tolson, Roos and Wetmouth. It's published by Forge Books, and it'll cost you just £1.30. I'll be back very shortly with a look at another West Country branch line. Until then, from me, good night. Hello. Well, tonight we're going to take a look at a survivor of the Southern Railways system west of Exeter. Not without justification was it always known as the Withered Arm. Even when it was eventually built after considerable delay, it never enjoyed the success and the prestige of its rival, the Great Western. But however, this part of the line from here at Exeter to Barnstaple has survived, and I think you'll agree with me it makes a very pleasant, if not a fascinating journey. Plans to build a line from Exeter into North Devon were announced in 1838, but it wasn't until 16 years later, after bitter quarrels between various railway companies and local authorities, that the line was completed as far as Barnstaple. It's really astonishing how only a few minutes from the centre of a busy commercial city, you're in the heart of rural Devon. Minutes after leaving St.Ives is Cowley Bridge. On a narrow viaduct, the main line to London and north swings to the right. We swing left towards our first stop at Crediton. The line here is still double-track, but the complete line into North Devon was never completely doubled, a significant contributor to the transport problems of the area today. A final promise by Southern Region to improve the line in 1957 came to nothing. The question now is not how can the line be improved, but rather will it be spared? Crediton Station is the first stop. And on leaving, the driver picks up the special key to ensure that he's the only train on the single track. The line is still a busy one. Last year it carried well over 250,000 passengers, and there are 9 trains a day in each direction. And it passes through some of the finest dairy farming country in Britain. just coming now up to Coleford Junction, once the busy crossroads for the main line expresses down through Oakhampton to Plymouth and Cornwall. Now the line goes only as far as Meldon, near Oakhampton, and it's used only for freight. We're just now approaching Lepford, where a creamery used to provide considerable freight traffic, but it's now closed down and that traffic has gone, probably forever. Just on the right, we're coming to two cottages which for years were supplied with water by trains, which stopped each day to offload a couple of churns full. Well, we're just now coming into Eggersford, which has an unusually smart, modern-looking signal box, in very great contrast to the rest of the line. Well, the reason for that is in the great floods of 1962, the old signal box there was swept into the river down below, and this replacement was brought from a place called Ashenford, which is on the main line between Paddington and Birmingham. Eggersford was chosen as the site for the first state forest in 1919, and today the valley is covered in trim formations of conifers. After Kingsnimpton, the line follows the River Tor, with all the panoramic scenery associated with it. Well, we're just coming up to the last but one stop, Umberley, still surely one of the prettiest rural stations in the whole of the West Country. Far away over there on the right is the hill on which the Liberal leader, Jeremy Thorpe, built the memorial to his late wife, Caroline. After just an hour, journey's end, the North Devon capital of Barnstaple.
Still heavily used that way, of course, for a train traffic. There's the line.
Well, I did promise you that it was a pretty run, didn't I? Well, now, if you'd like to make this journey for real, it'll cost you £2.15 a day return. That's all the way from Exeter to Barnstaple. But of course, you could sample shorter sections of the line for very much less. There is, of course, talk by British Rail of slimming their services, and no doubt this line from Exeter to Barnstaple would indeed be very vulnerable. One can only hope from what we've just seen that British Rail will try to find other ways of saving money. I'll be back taking a look at another West Country branch line very soon. I hope you'll join me. Until then, good night. It's hard to think of a major West Country railway station that's more of a fitting memorial to Dr. Beeching's draconian cuts in our railway services than this place, Exeter Central. It was rebuilt in 1933, and as little as 12 years ago it would have been a hive of activity here, with Atlantic Coast Expresses going up there to Waterloo in just 2 hours 50 minutes and back down that way again into the southwest with through coaches to places like Plymouth, Padstow and North Devon. But now, of course, all that's changed a great deal. Some of the buildings are becoming quite derelict, and instead of a large staff here, there are no more than 3 men working here at any one time. And those expresses, well, they now take 4 hours to get from here to Waterloo along a single track. In fact, the most frequent service from this station now is for one of the old branch lines from here to the seaside resort of Exmouth. And that's the one we're going to take a look at tonight. Who should build the line, the South Devon Railway or the London South Western Railway, was a rivalry that raged fiercely at the end of the 1850s. In the end, the London South Western won, and the line was opened in 1861. It served then, as it does now, the eastern and southern suburbs of Exeter and its football team. Like every other branch line in the West Country, it's been threatened with closure and reprieved. Now, the line has never been busier. It carries 20 trains a day in each direction, 25 each way on summer Saturdays, and there's a one-stop commuter service, mornings and evenings. Last year, almost 750,000 people bought tickets to use the line, and more than 2/3 of them actually used Exmouth Station itself. And this year, the figures are even higher. The good weather, the increased cost of petrol and parking have led to a new record. After leaving the main track to Waterloo, the line meanders through the suburbs and finally out into the Devon countryside. And eventually over a new landmark, the almost completed end of the M5 motorway. Well, the next stop we're coming to is Topsham, once a busy freight centre with its own quay, and where some enterprising gardener has imprinted its name in privet. The line was eventually taken over by the Southern Railway and later the Southern Region, and the station nameplates are still in Southern Green, although the line has been operated by the Western Region since the early 1960s. The guard conductor, Frank Peck, has been working on the line for the past 25 years. Has it changed much in those days?
Well, yes, I think so. The steam days was then, see? Diesel now, not a difference.
Well, what difference has it made to you?
Well, more work, issuing tickets. Never had none before, see?
It's a very pretty run, this, isn't it?
Oh, the best you can get. Best you can get, sir.
You get pretty crowded during the summer.
Oh, yes, yes, and the people's very nice too. We get to know more and no trouble.
Do you find it better now, in fact, you meet the people by taking their money than
Oh,
when you were
yes,
just a guard?
yes, definitely, yes.
Gets a little bit better?
Yeah, it's getting better every day, yes. Yeah, we don't get no trouble whatever, like, you know. Well, you may get a few drunks of a Saturday night, but nothing at all.
And they're worth it to work on a nice line?
Yeah, I think so.
Thank you very much indeed, Frank.
Thank you, sir. Bye-bye.
After Topsham, you begin to see some of the scenic splendour the line is famous for. The ex-estuary with its boats, its proliferation of seabirds, and its views of South Devon. On the left is the Royal Marines Infantry Training Centre at Lympstone. Here, British Rail are about to build a new halt for military personnel and visitors. It'll cost about £6,000, but it's expected to raise revenue by more than 3 times that amount each year, and it should be completed by next May. Finally, after just 24 minutes, journey's end, the seaside resort of Exmouth. Well, there you are. Now, if you'd like to make this journey for real, it'll cost you just 60p a day return, and children half price. Now, this station here at Exmouth is undergoing a major change at the moment. This platform that we're standing on at the moment will shortly disappear to make way for a new road, and a new station for Exmouth, its third, is being built over there, and that should be completed sometime early next year. And that surely must be a sign of confidence in the future of this line from Exeter to Exmouth.